Great. All right, so let me introduce myself. My name is Ayanda from Ashoka Indonesia, and I'm a champion for this session. In the next 60 minutes, more or less, we will have an engaging conversation with 4 awesome panelists who have been with us here to rethink our current approaches to capacity building and also catering them to emerging needs of women's social entrepreneurship and the stakeholders they aim to serve. This session aims to uncover the gaps and also the surface new and necessary components to increase the capacity of women social entrepreneurs with a focus on mindset, skill building, and learning journeys. The panel itself will be moderated by an inspiring moderator. He is one of my role model as well, and my go-to person when it comes to the social entrepreneurship topic. He left his job as a computer engineer at IBM to change the world. Since making that decision, he has spent the past 10 years heavily involved in the social sector, including a stint as country head of Ashoka Singapore. His journey has led him to working with people, including shelter home children to the social entrepreneurs. With a passion for international development, he placed a strong focus on finding ways to enable charitable actions to be scalable. He lives right now in Singapore with his young family and loves learning about people, culture, and finds humor in everyday life. Yes, humor is very important. Currently, he is the Chief Transformation Officer at South Central Community FSC. Fun fact about him is he loves to eat chicken or ayam so much. So you might want to buy him a chicken for his birthday gift. All right. Without any further ado, let's call on Rajesh to kick off our conversation. Please, Rajesh, time is yours.
Oh, thanks a lot, Ayanda, for that warm introduction. Yes, I do love the chicken, especially in Indonesia. So I call myself Ayam Ibrahim. So if I'm in Indonesia, you can just call me Ayam if you want. So that's my passion towards chicken. Not great for the planet, but yeah. Okay, so we have quite a number of people joining us today. Can you let us know where you're joining from? So if you could head over to the chat box, that's right below, and quickly introduce yourself, your name and where you're joining from. We'd love to know where our audience is joining us from. Yeah, give you a few seconds. So we have May from Bangkok, Thailand. Yes, we have a great ASEAN representation today. Where else? Oh, we are from Central Kalimantan, Indonesia. Okay, from Thailand, Singapore. Okay, Aceh, Kalimantan. Okay, the names, the places are coming in. Wonderful. Thanks for joining us from all over ASEAN. I see Myanmar, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia. Okay, so thanks a lot. Welcome everyone to this panel. We're going to spend an hour together. So if it's possible for you to switch on your videos, please do that. So we know that you're with us and not snoozing. And keep the chat box engaging. You know, throughout the conversation, I invite you to share your reflections on the chat box. This panel is called Strengthen, Rethinking Capacity Building Approaches, and that's what we're going to talk about. We have 4 amazing panelists. We have May from Thailand. So May, where are you? Can you show your hand? Okay. So as I say the panelist name, audience, if you could cheer them, you know, using the cheer emoticon, that would be fun. Yeah. So that's May. Then we have IRMA. So IRMA is our second panelist. Then we have SASKIA. And we have Caroline. So 4 panelists representing ASEAN from Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore. Can we give them one loud cheer using your emoticons? All right. Okay. So audience, keep our panelists engaged and panelists likewise. All right. So our main objective today is to really talk about what are some of the mindset shifts needed as we rethink capacity building approaches. And as Ayanda introduced, I used to lead Ashoka's office in Singapore, and I used to run capacity building sessions and that was when I was on the other side of the table. And now I'm on the other side of the table, and here I really see the value of capacity building and the importance of it. So really excited and honored to be part of this conversation today. I'll share the format of the panel. So at the start, I have some short answer questions for the panelists, right? So through that process, let's get to know the panelists a bit more. And then we'll go into a long answer question where each panelist from their experience will share insights related to this topic. And then we'll take a quick pause. And when we hit pause, I invite everybody in the audience to ask questions. So use the chat box to ask questions, and we would love to lean into some of those questions. And then we will end with a few action steps or actionable questions that the panelists will refer to, right? So that's our flow for the next 1 hour. While that happens, so let's keep the chat box buzzing. So audience, I have 2 requests from you. One is keep the chat box buzzing. Whenever you like something, use an emoticon, whatever emoticon you want, right? By the way, there are filters available in Zoom. So if you want to wear a filter and be trendy, you can do that too. And then please feel free to use the chat box to share your reflections, right? So that we know what is emerging for you as we run through the session. Yeah, so that's for the audience. So let's head straight into the panel discussion now. I'll start with Saskia. Saskia is the Director of Advisory at ANGIN. She worked as a marketing consultant in various impact-driven organization projects. Her specialty is strategic market planning, market intervention, policy development for SME and tertiary sector ecosystem building for emerging markets. And I also invite you to look at the Summit website where you can read more about Saskia. Yeah. So Saskia, I invite you to pick 2 numbers between 1 and 20. And there's a question against those 2 numbers.
Wow. Okay. 2 and 3.
Okay, you've picked 2 and 3. So your first question is, what is the nickname your parents used to call you?
Oh, Kiki.
Kiki. All right. That's nice. And number 3, right? The second question is, would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
Maybe better talk all the language in the world, because if you can talk to animals, maybe I'll be more depressed than what we already are because of climate change and everything, right? Like, because they are the ones who feel it more than us, as bad as us as well.
Okay, interesting perspective. So thank you for just helping us get to know you a bit better. Now I'll move to May. May is from Thailand. She's the CEO and founder of the LUKKID Company Limited and Asian Leadership Academy. She's one of the pioneers who introduced human-centered design to business and social organizations in Thailand. May graduated from the Stanford School of Business and was a D leader at the Hasso-Plattner Institute of Design. And she founded LUKKID as an organization. So May, pick 2 numbers.
4 and 11, Rajesh.
4 and 11. Okay, so your number 4 question is, how long does it take you to get ready?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Oh, wow. That's really, really efficient, May. 30 seconds. Huh? Oh my God. Can anybody beat that? 30 seconds. Okay, so I think May will get the Guinness record for that. So your second question is, what's for dinner tonight?
I'm going out for a date with my son later. So noodles, beef noodles.
Beef noodles. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, thank you, May, for sharing a little bit about yourself. Now we move to Caroline LIOW. She's the managing director at Deutsche Bank. Caroline leads and sets strategic direction for the COO operations in Asia Pacific across all post-trade client and operational services. She manages a team size of 1,200 people across 15 locations in Asia Pacific. So welcome, Caroline. Thanks for joining us. Can you pick 2 numbers?
1 and 10.
1 and 10. Okay. Your question is, what is the favorite day of the week? What is your favorite day of the week?
It's got to be Friday.
Friday, yes. That's right. It has to be Friday. So I'm glad you're looking forward to your Friday. Your next question is kind of funny, so listen carefully. Would you rather cuddle with a baby panda or a baby penguin?
I'll say it should be a baby panda.
Baby panda. Okay. Any reason?
Well, warm and fuzzy.
Warm and fuzzy. Okay.
I've never done it before, but that's how I imagine it to be.
Okay. I hope I put that thought in your head. So next time, I hope you find some baby panda to cuddle with. Okay. All right. And finally, our 4th panelist, IRMA. IRMA is from Indonesia. She's the program director for Women's Earth Alliance Indonesia. She's the founder of and an ecosystem, which is an ecosystem builder for grassroots sustainable development. So Irma, can you pick two numbers?
9 and 18.
9 and 18. Okay, Irma, your question is, do you believe in faith?
Of course, 100%.
All right, that's a very convincing answer. And final question is, how would you rate your karaoke skills on a scale of 1 to Mariah Carey?
Minus 100.
Minus 100. Okay, all right. So if you find,
I don't do well in karaoke.
all right, if you find Irma in Indonesia, please take her for karaoke. Okay, so thank you, four panelists. You've really helped us understand a little bit about you. So we'll move on to the next set of questions. And again, these are quick, short questions. Again, this is for Caroline and Irma. So I'll start with Caroline. Caroline, can you give an example of a competency that you built in your journey as a leader?
Yeah, thanks for that, Rajesh. So I think one of the key competency we've been quite focused on in the past, I would say, 18, 24 months is really about problem solving through a different lens. And with that, I think, we've been traditionally successful with, having deep experience and expertise in the markets and the work that we do. But with the market disruption, the changes we've seen in the industry, I think the traditional way we solve problems and the traditional way we look at things is no longer as relevant and probably becoming more obsolete. So we've been largely focused on looking at how we could equip our teams and ourselves to look at things differently. And this is through a number of things, whether is it more exposure to different innovation or technology tools, but more importantly on design thinking type skills, so that we can start to look at a problem differently, solve it differently, and as a result get a better outcome and become more creative. And I think the journey has been super interesting because it's given us different insights and how we tackle issues in general, whether on a personal level or even at work.
Got it. Thanks, Caroline, for leaning into that and talking about the problem-solving competency. Irma, would you like to share what you think is something you built in your journey?
Yes, I feel like the competencies that I'm about to share is supporting of Caroline's traits. But I feel like throughout my journey, one competency that I would like to always have developed is intuitive leadership. I remembered when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I didn't have anyone to help me build the business model, build the business plan. I didn't even have the plan, right? I didn't have a business administrative experiences. I didn't go to business schools. So everything I have to figure out by myself. And throughout my journey, I've learned that intuition is as equally as important as having knowledge and having all of the system put in place for you. Because as an entrepreneur, you will find a lot of challenges along the way, right? You will find a lot of uncertainties, and tapping into that strength within you to understand that you are capable of doing things means that you can maneuver on these challenges easier, right? And I feel like this intuitive intelligence is one of the things that comes naturally in women. And I feel like it's getting more and more important. A lot of people are now doing research about that, writing books and articles about intuitive leadership. And I feel like it's time for us as women to tap into that strength again.
Got it. Okay, thanks a lot, Irma, for sharing. I have a slightly different question now for Saskia and May. Instead of sharing about the competency you built, my question is, can you give an example of a competency that women social entrepreneurs require in the current world that we live in? So maybe I'll start with Saskia.
Okay, based on the experience that I have and then doing capacity building in my capacity in ANGIN, like what we think that is really important for these social entrepreneurs to have, actually, especially women, is the ability to adapt, the agility, like the ability to actually adapt quick. And this actually based on the maybe it's not assertion, it's not also aggression, but it's more like the ability to accept, to be able to unlearn, to be able to relearn. So like if let's say this entrepreneur thinks that 3 years ago, okay, this is the right way, I'm gonna do this is my business model. Like she doesn't need to be ashamed or maybe like feeling that it's not adequate anymore if she actually change it, later. So this is the ability that is really important for entrepreneurs, I think. The ability to relearn and unlearn, and then learning again, then do it again.
Thanks for sharing that, Saskia. It's a very hard thing, unlearning. So thanks for bringing it up. May, what do you think? What do you think is an important competency that women social entrepreneurs should have?
Thank you for the question, Rajesh. Actually, my answer is very, very similar to what Saskia just mentioned. I feel that we are living in the world where change is really the only constant, right? So like if you think about COVID-19 and how it happens, just remind us that the world every day is never the same. And the speed of changes is exponential, and it will be even faster over time. So I feel that the only way to survive as a passionate entrepreneur who's working on something that you care deeply about, I think one of the key competency required is really to staying open to different ways of getting things done, right? And that is to detaching yourself from the ideas or concept that you have acquired in the past, realizing that it might be old or not relevant anymore, and be open enough to kind of move on to take over new methodologies or ideas or processes. So I think it's about questioning the reality and trying to start to construct a new reality based on how the world is changing. I think that mindset is very important because things change super fast every day.
Okay, thanks a lot, panelists. So I'm hearing problem solving, intuitive leadership, unlearning, relearning, and ability to manage constant change. So thank you for sharing this. I have 2 questions for the audience. So Ayanda, if you could launch the poll. Audience, there will be a poll that will be launched. You'll have to participate. So Ayanda, please launch the poll and let's see what you think to these 2 questions.
I think Sabrina, if you can support since you are the host.
Okay, I think the poll is raised. So there are 2 questions. The first question to your audience is, how many capacity building sessions have you participated in before? None, at least 1, or greater than 1. That's the first question. And the second question is, what competencies do you think should be strengthened most for WSEs today, or women social entrepreneurs today? Okay, I invite everyone in the audience to answer this so we know where you stand. So it does look like most of you who have completed this poll has attended more than 1 capacity building session. Okay, that's interesting. And looks like most of you have attended leadership related capacity building sessions. Then you've attended communication and storytelling related ones, okay? Let's give everybody a couple more seconds to complete the poll if you have not answered. Okay, Sabrina, you can end the poll and can you show the results so everybody can see? All right, so at least 19 of you have attended more than 1 capacity building session, and at least 54% of you think that leadership is the capacity building that needs to be strengthened. Communication storytelling is a close behind. Then some of you have connected to org development. The one that has got the least is financial sustainability. Okay, that's interesting because I feel financial sustainability is the one that is the strongest need. Okay, so thank you for sharing those insights, audience. So panelists, you also know where our audience is. So now let's get into some more discussions. And here I would invite the panelists to talk from their experience, share your insights, and audience, as you listen, please feel free to use the chat box to talk about your reflections. So I'd love to start with Caroline. Caroline, having known your work in the last couple of years, you launched Boost in Deutsche Bank, which is a form of leadership development for your employees. And then you took Boost to the world and created a way for a corporate collaboration with WSEs. So from that experience, can you share a little bit about what is working, not working? What would you design differently? What did you learn? What did your employees learn? If you could just take us through some of your insights, that would be wonderful. Over to you, Caroline.
Thanks, Rajesh. I'm happy to share. Well, just maybe a bit of context. So Boost was something that we started in Deutsche Bank. It's an internal people transformation program. And we started it, we realized there's a need to transform the skills of our people and to be relevant in future, to be able to reimagine and redefine the work that we do. We were very fortunate. We had, a great group of people who came through the program for a couple of years. And then we realized that we have an empowerment that we didn't have to keep it in-house within Deutsche Bank, that we could take this gift we have and look at how we could share it with the community. So we have a lofty ambition then to say, hey, who can we start to impact and how do we do this? And I guess, through my engagement, I was very fortunate to then, work with Rajesh and Ashoka in terms of a mentoring program for the WSE. And that gave me some insight and motivation that, this is an area we want to kind of take that, empowerment to. And the outcome of that was really Boost X, which was the external collaboration we had with Ashoka and the DIWA program. And with that, the aim was really to help bridge the gap between corporates and WSE. And what we wanted to do is focus on capacity building. And I think there's lots of great programs out there that the corporates, the corporations and private enterprises work with social enterprises. And what we wanted to do is take what we have learned within the bank and bring it out with the WSE. And the journey has been just outstanding. I think the introduction to the 11 WSE we have met through Ashoka and now fell in love with. We have to work closely with them. Our teams are particularly motivated now. And what worked really well is, I think we all discovered, at least from a corporate perspective, that everyone has a desire to want to make a change. But it's a little bit like, when you go into a restaurant, there is a menu that has many things going on, right? And you just don't know how to start and how to get there. And I think the program we had with Boost X and the DIWA program gave us a window of opportunity for our teams to access that opportunity and understand and expose them to the urgency of women entrepreneurship, and also giving them an opportunity to create an impact. And that's been, really successful and impactful. I think what's been a little bit challenging, because there's always two sides of the story, is I think the coordination, and we've got many organizations, getting the time factor right, all that has caused a little bit of challenge, but all very addressable and something that we learned through the journey as well. I think our approach as well, from a Deutsche Bank perspective, has been very corporate-like, right? So we've got frameworks and we think about protocols and all, which doesn't resonate very well with the social enterprises. And that's where, we are constantly calibrating and learning through the process. And that's where I think also where, we are exposed to, whether is it designing skills, and I talked about problem solving earlier with, a different lens. That's all come into play on a very practical level. And, I know that, for some of my boosters that's on the call as well, they've also told me that, we've calibrated our program to put the WSE at the center of our program versus what Deutsche Bank wants to do. And I think that's actually changed the perspective. of what we want to achieve, right? And if we put the subject and our client, and in this case, our social entrepreneurs in the center of it, and then we start to build the connections to build a better, a more effective collaboration, that has worked well. So really happy to share that. I think it's been a big success, at least from where we are right now. We are actually working very closely with our 11 superwomen and gearing them out for what we call the X Factor finale. And through that, we are sharing with them how the corporates are thinking about things. We're helping them refine their pitch, right? And through that, I hope that it gives them some insight and some safe practice session that next time they go for their Series 7 funding or anything else, right, to build a more sustainable progress forward, right? This is a good platform for them to practice how to connect with corporates and how to make the pitch. So that's the angle that we are also focusing on. And, I think key takeaways for both sides really is, our guys are now, from Deutsche perspective, personally motivated with the exposure, rising to the action, want to do more. So it's not me hovering over them, that they got to do it. And I think with the WSE, I hope that they really truly take something away. And through this, we want to tell people and tell the community that, it's not hard to get this going and bring more organization into this movement.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Carol. And I think I want to appreciate, and if anybody else, please use your emoticons. Thank you for putting WSE at the center of your design. That's a big mindset shift, and that's part of rethinking our capacity building approaches on how corporations can play an important role in building capacity in civil society. So really appreciate that. Thank you for taking that bold step. So with that, let me move over to May. May, you understand user design approaches more than anyone else. You pioneered it, and you've been using design thinking as a process to solve problems, right? So can you share some insights and your learnings from that process? And what do you think? How do you think that has really helped build capacity in the space?
Sure. So when you talk about human or design thinking, the goal of the process of design thinking is really to start with the user, right? So when you talk about coming up with new product, new service, new customer experience, many times our human tendency is that we tend to jump into the solution of coming up with something based on our assumption, based on the existing technology that is there in the market. And many times when we jump to the solution, we fail to keep ourselves up to pace with how the world is changing, how the customers are thinking. And many times there's a lot of things that we don't know because every time that we sit here in this room, the world outside is changing. So design thinking as a tool for social entrepreneur is really about us trying to step back and understand the problem, spend some time talking to the stakeholders before jumping into the solution, because that step back would really allow you to understand a lot of the challenges in a much better light and allow you to come up with new solutions. I think that's the big part of design thinking, solving problems with empathy. Now, one big chunk of design thinking that I have applied very well for my organizations, my work, and also on a personal level. If you talk about my challenge as a woman social entrepreneur or as a mother of a 5-year-old son, I think one of the challenges that I have is trying to be the best in both worlds, right? I want to be a good mother, I want to be a good leader of my organizations, and that's not easy. And sometimes there are moments when I would feel like, oh, maybe I would have to give up something for the others, maybe scaling down some of my work so that I would have time for my son. And if you were to use the other part of the design thinking mindset to kind of tackle this challenge, one of the things that I find very useful for myself is the concept of reframing, closing the gap between problems and idea, right? It's about asking yourself, questions like, how might I involve my son in my social work so I do not have to pick one or the other? Or how do I downsize my work in a way that I'm still happy about the impact so that I would have more time as a parent? So I feel that reframing is a very powerful tool that could also help you reframe some of your social problems that you face, changing the lens from seeing it as a problem to seeing it as an opportunities and finding ways to do it. So back to your questions, design thinking itself is really a mindset. It's about stepping back to understand the problem, making sure that you reframe it so that you see the problem as the opportunities. I think the last most crucial step is doing something about it, right? Trying it out, working it out, see if it works according to what you thought it is. So I think it's a learning process, and it's a loop. Once you go through the loop, then you learn. And I think that's how we learn to adapt our skills and move on through challenges, both at the personal level and organizational level. I think that would be my quick answer to your questions, Rajesh.
Yeah. No, thanks a lot, May. I love the word used, reframe. The moment you reframe the question, there's a high chance the way you solve it would be different. Your approach would be different. So thanks for bringing that up. Just a quick time check to the panelists. We have 30 minutes to go, so we manage our time as we head to the finish line. Yeah. Okay. So now moving on to Saskia. So before any capacity building, with my experience, we run something called the needs assessment, right? So audience, you remember this. You'll get these big forms. They ask you to fill, rate yourself. And what is always interesting is financial sustainability, or the enterprising part of your competency seems to be the one in demand, right? Meaning that's where we see most of you baselined much low, right? And Saskia, with your experience in ANGIN, can you share a little bit about what is the mindset shift and the skills needed for every women leader to think and act like an entrepreneur, to have that enterprising mindset? What does it really mean, and how do you build that as a capability?
Yeah, thank you, Rajesh. First thing first, right? Social entrepreneurs are very special creatures. Like they come from altruistic mindset that they really want to help to make the world a better place. They want to have solution to social issue, that they are really special people. So this we realize that if, let's say, they want to start the enterprise, and then they want the enterprise to sustain, especially if, let's say, the people behind them, the people who work with them, including the investors, including the partners, they want them to grow, like in the terms of high growth. So it means that they also need to balance the ability of the altruistic ability with the ability to actually sustain and to grow the business. So this meaning that the ability for them, it's really important for them to be able to understand what kind of capital that are available for them, without them feeling that, oh, is it a good money? Is it a good capital? Because they are good people. They are really altruistic people. They're gonna have this, we don't want them to have this ongoing dilemma within their brain and within their heart, like, oh, should I take this? Should I take that? Or should I stay with all the grants that's available? Or should I take this investors, but these investors are A, B, C, D. So this is where the sustainability finance capacity building is needed. And then on the top of that, what's also needed is ability to manage a high growth enterprise, because in the end they are businessmen, unless they want to be full advocate. But full advocate meaning that they are not social enterprise, they are NGOs, for instance. So this is where as a capacity builders, we need to really make them understand this, and it's not even a module in the capacity building. It should be the underlying soul of the capacity building itself. So it's like that, Rajesh, I think.
Okay, thanks a lot, Saskia. And I think this is a question, audience, you get quite often, right? How are you sustainable? And I think this part, what Saskia shared, speaks to that. So let's move on to IRMA. Another word that's commonly used in the field of social impact is ecosystem building, right? And most of the time, social entrepreneurs, you also realize that you have to build that ecosystem around the problem that you're trying to solve for you to solve that problem at scale. Now, to play at an ecosystem level, which is moving slightly away from an organization, needs a different set of mindset and skill set. So I would love to hear from IRMA, how does a women social entrepreneur build the mindset and skills to play at an ecosystem level?
Thank you. I feel like this is one of the toughest questions ever being asked to me, but I think what I find really helpful for me in terms of trying to understand the players or the stakeholders around my business or my foundation or my organization is understanding systems thinking more. So system thinking is a very, very important tool for us, especially social entrepreneurs, because at its core, what we want to do is to solve social and environmental problems. And we know that social and environmental problems are complex problems. There's no a linear cause and effect process, right? So we want to equip ourselves with this really, really powerful method called the system thinking. There's a lot of book available for us to learn more about that. So what it does is that it really gives us a tool to map these complex social issues and all the parts, elements, and the interrelations between the elements in the system. So that's what we can do. That's what we can do as the first step. Number two is that think about our business or our enterprise in terms of its growth journey. We really need to build. We really need to figure out our value chain and really create a shared value throughout our supply chain. We really need to understand what are the added value that we can bring to each part of our value chain so that our ecosystem can be more resilient. So it can be as simple as providing English training to our women weavers so that they can read more tools in English or find more, have more ability to Google on things in English language, for example. So things like that. So think about what are the values that we can uniquely address in our value chain so that all of us as an ecosystem can get stronger and more resilient.
Thanks a lot, IRMA, for sharing those insights. So we heard some lovely insights from the panelists. So I'll just take a quick pause here for any questions from the audience. If you have any questions, can you use the chat box? We would love to see what are the questions that's coming up with you as we went through these questions. Please use the chat box, put some of the questions you have. I invite the panelists to just lean in and see what questions are emerging, and if you'd like to pick up to answer any of them. Okay, we have a few questions coming in. Before we go crazy with these questions, can we have some more questions? It's a good question, Albion. It's a very good question. Love to see some more questions. Okay, while we wait for the other questions, and Albion, since you posted that question, any of the panelists, you like to quickly react to that question?
Of course, there's a lot of challenges. We already know that we are in a very unbalanced level of playing field with men in terms of everything, in terms of decision making, in terms of opportunities for learning, access to resources, and we all know that since history, the systems that are built in this world are built by men. And so there's a lot of values that is very strong to women that is not incorporated in this system. And so, yeah, the challenges can be as simple as our ability to express ourselves, because we are born and raised to question ourselves, to stay silent, and things like that. So there's personal, professional, political challenges that we face all the time, I think.
Okay, thanks for sharing, Irma. Any other panelists just want to lean in? I'll just maybe read out the two questions. As a women leader, is there any challenge at your changemaker journey? Is there any underestimate with your gender or issue related to women? Second question is, what are the challenges you face from communities when you start your enterprise? So these were the two questions that came up. So what I'll do is I'll move on to a series of questions I have. And while we have those questions, please also try to see if you can address these questions. So my next set of questions are for Caroline and May. So I'll start with Caroline. The question is this, like, how do you translate capacity building to organizational development and impact? Now, what are the approaches that entrepreneurs or leaders can take to build a learning organization? So Caroline, would you like to lean in and share some of your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I think we no longer think about capacity building in terms from pure corporate perspective versus social enterprises per se, because all that, I think, with how market disruption is happening, the skill sets are all commingling, and in response to environment, I think it's really more opportunistic than anything. So a lot of what we have been doing is looking at not only are we building enablement and empowerment for our teams, translating it to business outcomes can also help the organization develop more sustainability approaches, right? And with that, it's like what we've collaborated with Ashoka and looking at the impact premium. And this is true, looking at how we could look at supporting clients in sustainable financing. We're able to then incorporate people and our own sustainability into our operations, right? Getting exposure to all these concepts and also the work that we're doing with whether is it social enterprises or the WSE. I think it's starting to bring together the corporate goals together with the WSE goals. And I think from an ecosystem perspective, the rules are changing, and the time is now where we're not looking at things in silo. It's time for us to basically really lean in on the opportunity to rearrange the ecosystem and redefine what it is, right? With the pandemic as well, I think it's thrown things up in the air. We have a lot of traditional structures which we all grown up with, but I think it also exposes many gaps and opportunities where former organizations has failed to solve. So I think as an organization, whether is it from a private or corporate sector versus a social entrepreneur, right? It's time for us to take that opportunity and more importantly, look at how we partner and collaborate and create that new ecosystem, right? So I see the objectives and the goals commingling and coming together. And the time to me is now, because we are here to define the new norm, and we're not settling for second best, in my view.
Thank you very much, Caroline. May, would you like to lean in?
Yep, sure. About translating capacity building to organizations and escalating the impact. I think we are all are too familiar with the ideas of gaining more knowledge by taking in new information and learning more. And I think a learning organization in this era is not an organization with a lot of training courses or skill workshops, but an organization that really learns and fails in action. By saying that, I mean, I think a learning organizations really need to have a learning community within the organizations. And when I said a community, I think it's really about creating a safe space where people can actually learn and fail, encourage self or team guided explorations, mistake driven learning, because because many times learning only happens when you integrate learning with the work processes. And sometimes we kind of put them separately into different compartments, right? So I think by keeping asking ourselves, like, are we, as a leader of, as a manager, as a leader of the organizations, are we giving people some room to fail and learn? Would be, I think by us asking ourselves that questions, we would be integrating learning with our work process. And by doing that, I think that's one way of really taking learning into actions and translating it into real impact at the organization levels. So what's the safe space, right? Can you give people that room to actually experiment and do something? I think that's one of the things that I think is very important.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up, May. Having your organizations fail in doing and creating spaces for your people to to experiment. I think that's really powerful. And I think thanks for bringing it up, because it does provide comfort for many of us listening here, so that we can also try it out with our organization. So on that note, another question for Saskia and IRMA is, as part of rethinking capacity building, and since we're living in a very different time, how do we design better? Now, how do we think of redesigning capacity building sessions or capacity building trainings or courses, whatever you want to call it, to better suit the needs of the women social entrepreneurs? What are your comments on that? So maybe start with Saskia.
Anytime, actually, the context really important, if not the most important time is now, because to make the capacity building really contextual to both audience and the timeline and the timing as well, it's really important. So what can I say is like, how we design it. The first, we need to see who are the audience, like who are the ones that we want to give the capacity building to. We need to understand them, meaning that we need to profile them. And then from this on, we need to understand what are they need and as a baseline. And then after that, we need to understand that where do we want them to be in the end of the capacity building. Of course, it's an ideal, but a good plan is always needed. So from there on, we can design better by knowing where we start and what kind of finish that we want to achieve. Of course, this is really related to whatever tools that is available now online, or do we want to do like full offline method, or do we want to do it like one by one? Do we want to do it like a lawyer type, like one by one consulting until it's done? It's really depending on the context, start and finish line. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that, Saskia. What about you, IRMA? What do you think should be designed better?
I think this question, I feel a lot of the things that can answer this question has been discussed by Dr. Iman, Indui, and also Kuntea in the plenary before with the scaling deep. But if I could just reiterate what they were saying, the number one that we should do as program designers is that we have to change the language and redefine really what success means to our target audience. In here, it's women, right? So we already know that there are a lot of invisible values that women hold that is not being accounted in terms of success. So changing the language, as simple as changing from saying capacity building to capacity enrichment, because by doing so, we also acknowledge all of these other values that may not be addressed in our leadership journey for our participants. Number two is that I'm just reading my notes from the plenary hall. Number two is that we really want to rethink how we distribute power. We see how technology right now is really very, very good, is a good example in decentralizing power, in decentralizing decision making, right? So how can we as a program designer redistribute this power to our participants and really empower them to take agency to the issues that they want to solve? And the third one is that we want to be able to really find the best, what Saskia said, contextual approaches from the ground up, right? Because many of our target who are women, they work with communities on the ground. Taking examples of Women's Earth Alliance, we work with environmental women who are working in the grassroots levels. So they have very different needs, they have very different capacity than people or women who are living in the urban areas. So we cannot just implement what works in the urban areas to the villages, right? So we really need to find a lot of ways, or put more effort in trying to understand what they need really on the ground by spending more time to talk to them, and creating circles in Women's Earth Alliance. We create a lot of circles with our participants to really get insights from them. And I think what May said about empathy is really, really important, because by doing so, we can capture what what the problem is from another perspective than from us as program developers.
Okay, thank you very much, Irma. So we're in the last 10 minutes of our panel discussion. Audience, I just want to check if you're still with me, or are you snoozing? Can I get some kind of a reaction just to know that you're still here? Just want to check if it's you or if it's a bot, Okay, few reactions. Yes, I see some hearts. Thank you. So many hearts coming, so that's very good. All right, the audience is with us, panelists, so that's good news. Please continue to ask your questions in the chat box. And now I invite the panelists to share some of your closing comments, all right? And closing comments more action-oriented. What would you say to the audience so that they can rethink the way they think about their capacity building and invest in their own personal learning journeys? What would be some of your closing comments? So maybe we start with May.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rajesh. My role on this would be for all of us to take perhaps what I would call like baby steps, right? Too big of a step sometimes would not lead us into any actions. Like, well, in late November, early December, we always have this big New Year resolutions of losing 5 kgs, and then we know that it's gonna fail, right? So many times I feel that by if you want to start investing in your learning journey, ask yourself, like, what can I do today that would make me a more capable person? Like, what can you do today that would strengthen some of my skills and mindset, and start doing the thing that you have identified today. Because I feel that it doesn't have to be big. It could be a small steps, like starting reading a book on new technologies every other 2 weeks. It could be things like starting a conversation with some experts to learn more about blockchain technologies. But I think these baby steps of learning would generate some momentums of small wins and additional perspective that would eventually translate into a bigger learning step and growth over time. So I feel that it always starts with something very small. And if you kind of add that to your tank every day, I think over time you look back, you see a lot of improvements. But I think it's baby step. It's actionable. It can be done. If it's not baby enough, it's not going to happen. So baby steps.
Okay, thank you, May. What about you, Saskia?
Okay, for the social entrepreneurs, right? So the message is going to be for social entrepreneurs, correct?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so there is no bad questions. Like when you are in the capacity building, like ask a lot. Like don't feel that you need to be, is this a good question? Am I actually okay to ask this? Like ask a lot, ask anything. These people are there to help you be better. So, and then if you feel that you disagree with something, it's always good to understand what's in your mind and then speak it up and then solve it along the way, because there's always solutions to, I always believe that there's always solutions to, let's say you need to change your business model. Let's say you need to make it more profitable, but you also need to make it better. But you also need to please the communities, for instance. Like there's always solution, and these people in the capacity building programs are there to help you. So there's never bad questions.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a question that I saw in the audience. I'll just say that out, and Caroline and Irma, when you make your closing comments also, if you can speak to it. The question is from DA. DA is currently teaching at a local university. He finds it's hard to motivate students, especially the young girls, to become or even want to become social entrepreneurs. Mostly they don't believe they have the capacity. So he's asked, he or she, I think it's a he, he's asking if, looking back at your experience as a college student, what would you tell them, so that they're motivated? I just put that question out there. If you can lean into it while you do your closing comments, please do. So can I have Irma to share your closing comments?
Yes. Wow, because my comment was going to be a bit different than the question. But I feel like that question is really important. Can I address that one instead, Rajesh?
Yes, please.
So I think this is, I feel like May would be the perfect person to answer this question, but going back to the design, human-centered design thinking, what we want to see is that we want to put the people that we facilitate at the center. This is what Caroline also said at the beginning, right? We don't want to push them to do the things that we think is the best for them. Not everyone needs to be social entrepreneurs. So we have our own calling, we have our own strength in the society. So as facilitators or program designers or teachers, our role is to make their learning journey easier and more meaningful to them. We need to be their, not guide, but we need to help them open up resources, open up access so that they can learn deeper about what they want to learn. So I guess that's what I think I can say to you, and try to exercise the human-centered design thinking and do the exercise with your program structure. I think, I don't know, maybe May, you have other things you want to add?
No, I think you put it very well, Irma. I maybe one thing I would add, maybe it's back to the small wins again. I feel like people perspective will only open when they see things that they can achieve, right? Like they can see that they can do it. So maybe if the task is too big, like, oh, I have to become a social entrepreneur. What are you talking about? It's impossible. Maybe that's just too far a step for them to see. Make it smaller for them. Make it something that would lead them there eventually, but it's small enough for them to actually get it done. I think that would be one way of, making it easier for them to actually slowly step up.
Yeah. Thanks, May. And Caroline, your closing comments?
Yeah, so I guess, going to, whether is it for the 15-year-olds or the 50-year-olds, I guess my message would be, it's never too late to start, to create an impact. And I think all of us can do it. And I think what I do want to share is actually there are many role models here, right? In the session earlier, there was a mention that the women social entrepreneurs are, really, really, really special beings. And, we need more of you out there, but we also need you to be more visible, because you are a role model for the new ecosystem we are creating. So step up. Be visible, and for those of you who are trailing behind, we want to learn and hear from you. And I guess my very last comment, which is something I learned as my leadership journey, and particularly for the women out there, is what got you here will not get you there, right? So constantly learning, constantly asking, unlearning, learning, it's all extremely important, right? And I think this community and a wider community there, they are really, the foundation that we can all lean on to. And, we just need to help one another to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And thank you, panelists, for this wonderful, engaging panel. You put some really powerful insights out there, and just capturing some of them being taking that baby steps, never too late to start, reframing the ecosystem, reframe as a word, deciding where you want to be as a leader, how do you build your capability, and designing for it. So all of it, I think, is really powerful in rethinking capacity building. From my experience, I would advocate everybody to go through 1, 2, 3, as many capacity building sessions there are. You find somebody offering it, take it, even if you have to do a small fee, take it, because it will help you come back refreshed to lead your organization. So with that, I think we have to take a group photo. So Ayanda, can you help us with that?
Sure. Please everyone open your camera. Is your signal permit? Okay. Okay, I see many beautiful faces and handsome faces as well. All right. Is everyone good? Okay, let's check. I still have one or two people are opening camera. Okay, let's count 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. Next slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one last slide. Wow, we have a lot. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think this is the last one. 1, 2, 3. All right, all good, Rajesh.
Yeah. Okay, so before Ayanda sends us back, I just want to thank the panelists. Thank you for your time. I want to thank the audience for keeping the chat box buzzing. And just as we started with those questions, I'm going to ask Ayanda to pick a number. Ayanda, pick a number between 15 and 20. I'm going to ask you the question and I want the answer from the panelists as well as the audience in the chat box. Yeah. So Ayanda, pick a number between 15 and 20.
I love 2. I will pick 2.
Oh, no, it has to be between 15 and 20.
Oh, 15. Sorry. 17.
Okay. Okay. The question is this, guys. So I want everybody to answer in the chat box. Do you own any stuffed animals? Looks like nobody in the audience. Oh, okay, except for a few own stuffed animals. Okay, May is convinced. She's like, of course. Okay, we have mixed answers here. Looks like most of you do not own any stuffed animals. So social entrepreneurs, maybe it's time to get yourself a stuffed animal. It helps you in your journey. And with that, thank you for this session today. And Ayanda, can you help us get back into the main room?
Sure. All right. There are a lot of inspiration, knowledge, and wisdom from each of the panelists as well as the moderator. I personally learned a lot and wish to stay longer here, but our time is limited. So we will need to wrap up and go back to the plenary room. It's really a fire starter, everyone. So please stay in touch and keep rethinking and don't stop our conversation here. Also, everyone join me to give round of applause with the virtual emoji for everyone here who are staying with us. And for now, please join us back in plenary for a summary of highlights from the different panel session and also for the next panel called Scaling Out with our next generation of changemakers. You will find the link in the chat and see you all in the plenary. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't see the link.
Okay, let me put again the link. So if you have joined the session before, you can go back to the link that the Zoom sent you in the email. But if you are new here, you can click the link here, the new link. Sorry.
I'll just
Give
leave
me a
it.
second. This one. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, everyone, let's go to the previous room, the main room, where we all met before. You can just go to the link bit.ly ReThink strip AWSE. Bisa di copy paste bit.ly garis miring ReThink strip AWSE. Okay. Bisa diketik di Google-nya. dan nanti akan otomatis.
Yes, you can just click the join meeting in progress. If you go to the website.
Apakah
Ada yang
bisa,
butuh
Bapak
bantuan? Do you need any support for that? Ada yang butuh bantuan?
Oke, tampaknya.
Okay, I think we can.
Oke.
Oh, okay, Hania. Can you click the link that Sabrina sent?